Welcome to the Soar podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs with limitless dreams and unconventional stories. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, founder and business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. My goal is to bring you stories of what's possible so you can never tell yourself that your dreams are impossible. Well, welcome to today's episode. Today we have Sarah Greener. Sarah, tell us all about you and your amazing businesses, plural.
Yeah. Hi, Ray. Nice to be here. So I'm a business coach from all the way in New Zealand in the beautiful Bay of Islands. So live in a special part of the world and been down here and living down here for 14 years. So we originally came here to run a tourism business. So we run an overnight cruise. We're really lucky. We've got 144 islands out in the bay. And so we came down here to live on board the boat and go kayaking and snorkeling and fishing and island walking and all those things, all those idyllic things as part of our business. So that's where I started. And then along the road, acquired some other businesses. So been in restaurants and online travel and retail. So kind of tried a little bit of everything along the way, piled them all up, piled all the businesses up. And then about 5 years ago, we're looking for a way to add to my skill base when we went from a team of kind of 9 to 90 effectively overnight.
Wow.
So bought a new business, expanded that new business, and we got big really quick and went, oh God, I don't think I've got the skills and tools to deal with such a big team. So went away and did some training and turned into a coach. And part of the training is you got to coach some people, and kind of figured out that I really enjoyed it, got some really great results. The pro bono clients you had to do in the training turned into paying clients. And 5 years later, it's my full-time gig. We still have the tourism business and have sold out of all the others. And pre-COVID, we're in the process of selling the tourism business as well. But unfortunately, COVID put a stop to that particular sale and purchase, but we're sure that will happen further down the track. So just ticking along with our domestic market at the moment in that business.
You are just the epitome of entrepreneurship. Wow. You have such a diverse background. And one of the things that really drew me to you and your profile was your focus on enjoyment and how you help the people that you coach, you help them bring that into their lives. And what I think is so timely, and I was actually just talking about this with one of my clients a few minutes ago before we hopped on the air, was the fact that a lot of us end up getting to a place in our businesses, in our business growth, in the trajectory where we feel like our businesses own us. And you are helping people reclaim ownership over not just their businesses, but their lives and their quality of life. Tell me about what that's like for you.
Yeah, so I love it. It lights me up. Someone just asked me yesterday, what are you most proud of? I'm like, oh my God, like business owners going on holiday without their laptops and their phones for the first time, or, someone who's got a business and I've had a few clients that have got pregnant and gone on to have babies and gone, oh, I can be a mum or I can be a business owner. I'm like, no, you can be both. We have to be smart about how we do it, but we can be both. And so those have been my, it just lights me up. Like not one of us got into business to work harder than we were when we were working for the man, right? We got into business for this mythical freedom we're all promised.
Yes.
And then you get in it and your business, you become your own worst enemy. You become the worst boss you've ever worked for. You don't give yourself time off. You work in the evenings, you work on the weekends. You constantly live in guilt because you're not where you're supposed to be. And when you're where you're supposed to be, you're not somewhere else. And so it was about looking at that and going, hey, this doesn't work. Yeah. And I think then there's that other layer to it for me, that being female, and I was young, but like you, probably when you started out in business, I was 24, 25 when we got into business here in New Zealand, and it was decided that I'd be the face. So I'm in business with my husband, and me being female and sitting at the table meant that I was often 20 years younger than most of the people sitting at the table. I wasn't male. Yes. And there's a whole lot of rules around business that are set up for someone who's male and has a housewife at home. And I don't think that's the reality for most of us in 2021. So the rules of business kind of sucked for me. And I tried to play by them for a really long time. And I, worked 70, 80, 100 hours a week in a bad week and couldn't understand why we weren't getting ahead. So that's why I came back around to there's got to be a better way. There's got to be an easier way, because otherwise people wouldn't keep doing this. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I figured that out and came around to actually, here's where the alignment sits. Here's what's most important to me. That's where I'm putting my energy. And I don't need a whole lot of more. I got sold a lot of more for a lot of years. And what I actually need is a lot less and keeping it really simple.
I love that you use the phrase mythical freedom, because I think that that's such an insidious thing of freelancing and entrepreneurship, where we get into this going, I'm going to be my own boss, I'm going to live that laptop life. Oh my God, if we all worked on our laptops, we would have a horrible carpal tunnel and we would just be miserable all the time and dealing with shitty Wi-Fi and all the things. But is it really mythical? I feel like you have created a business on the premise that freedom isn't mythical. It might be elusive and it might be difficult to kind of reprogram ourselves, especially for people who are really high achievers. And they're like, I want the results. I want them yesterday. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Nothing's going to stop me. And then we get into that situation that you're describing, where we really dig ourselves into this hole of trading in our 9 to 5 for a 24/7. And we're just miserable. So what have you learned in your years of being a business coach and working with these high achieving entrepreneurs? What have you learned about what it really takes to claim freedom and not have it be a myth?
Yeah. So I think part of the reason that this is a myth is because you're chasing somebody else's version of what freedom and success looks like. So for me, I never, at 24, 25, I never got the chance to look around and go, hey, there's a woman who's happily married or in an intimate relationship with young children, is looking after her health and well-being, has time for herself. Like, I never saw it. Travels, does fun things outside of work. It just didn't exist. So the only role models I had were, let's be real, white men in their 50s who had a housewife at home who was taking care of all of that stuff. And so it was really hard because I had to figure it out for myself. And so when you're trying to model your freedom on someone who doesn't have to play by your rules, and it doesn't have the expectations, and basically has a different set of what they want out of success. And so it was really often financially driven because so much of life was taken care of by someone else, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so I was really clear up front, and my husband and I are really clear, we're a team. And so our life runs as a team. Also, my husband couldn't handle if I ran the house because things would run out all the time. And sort of stuff. Way more organized when it comes to that stuff. So I had to figure out what my success looked like, because then I could figure out what freedom looks like. Because when I talk about freedom, for me, it doesn't mean not working. I love what I do. Like, I thrive in it. And for me, that's a piece of freedom. And figuring that out. And, then it was like the balance world came into play. It's like, you have to have work-life balance. And I'm like, but that assumes that one's bad and one's good. And I can assure you that, there's some bad stuff in running your own business. Absolutely. We've all been there. But some of my life stuff, like raising a child, like, I can assure you there were nights where, that wasn't a whole lot of fun either. So it didn't all go on the good side of the ledger either. And so figuring out like what mattered most to me, and then just aligning my entire life to that, allowed me to go, okay, and now I know what success looks like. And for me, that looks like being able to work from anywhere. We've been working towards that probably pretty clearly for the last 3 years. And pre-COVID, we would have achieved that by now. COVID's probably put a little bit of a pin in it for a few moments, but by the end of next year, we'll be off and traveling, and I'll be running my business from wherever we are, and Johnny will be homeschooling Scarlett, and we'll be there kind of tick, So it doesn't mean a multi-million-dollar house on a beach and a very expensive car, which is different.
Right.
So
yeah. And for you, especially because you have gotten rid of this whole work-life balance paradigm that a lot of us grow up hearing about. But of course, that assumes that you can leave work at the office and then go home and be present with your family and enjoy both. That's not the world we live in, especially now. You mentioned COVID, especially now that so many people are working from home, whether they still work for an employer or they work for themselves. And we have these devices all over our house, whether it's our cell phones, our computers, our laptops, our iPads, our Alexas, whatever, that can connect us to work just by saying, hey, what emails do I have in my inbox? So now that you have kind of dissolved this work-life balance paradigm, what does it look like for you in terms of time? Are you spending, 70 hours a week working? Are you spending 10? Or are you kind of like, fuck it, I'm not even going to count?
I'm not at fuck it, I'm not going to count yet, because I still get up every week and kind of pinch myself a little bit, because I kind of designed this is what an ideal week would look like, and now I live it.
Yeah.
So I still kind of go, oh, it's only 30 hours this week, so I'm still in that space, and I'm sure that there'll be a time in the future where that becomes normal to me, but for now I just feel like a part-timer, which I really love. I love the energy of it. So my week's really designed to serve my clients first and foremost, because that's obviously got some key timings around it, but then the rest of my week doesn't have this kind of built-in structure. I think for a lot of years I was like, I've got to work 9 to 5 because that's what the world says I should work 9 to 5. Well, when you work over different time zones, that's not a reality either. We have a little girl who's at school, so I don't want to be constantly working when she's available to hang out, because I'm still cool. She's only 9. I'm sure that the cool factor will leave eventually. So while I'm cool, I want to soak in that coolness. So I don't count it. For me, time is where it's at. So I am fiercely protective now of my time, because I grew up. I heard you talk about being kind of an 80s baby where, parents raised you and said, oh, you can be anything. So I'm the eldest of 4 girls, and I grew up on a big farm, 2,500 acres in the King Country in New Zealand. And my parents told us we could be anything, do anything we wanted to do. I think the piece that our parents forgot to tell us when we grew up in that era was, you can do anything, you just can't do everything all at once. And so you have to pick, what am I working on for this chapter of my life? So that's that kind of piece for me, is I've actually had to learn the word no, because I was just a people pleaser for years, because I was a good girl, right?
Yeah.
So good girls, the answer when someone asks you to do something is yes. And so I just kept doing it. I was the epitome of, you want something done, give it to a busy person. And then all of a sudden I kind of started getting bitter about the workload that I had, and people stopping to ask me to do things. And I was really involved in our community. And that felt really sad to me. Like, if we're going to give back, we want to give back from a place of like love and generosity and fun and playfulness, not oh God, I have to because I said I would. So no's been a magic word for me. And that's really changed my life. It took a long time. It took me nearly 2 years to unlearn that I must do everything for everyone.
I love that you use the word design. And that's a word that I use all the time with my clients in probably every workshop. That's probably one of the most common words that I use, because it really is about your week being by your design, your business being by your design, as opposed to what often happens is we get swept up in the doing of running the business, that then one day we step back and we look at the business and we go, what the fuck? How did it get here? How did I build this? This isn't what I had in mind. This isn't what I thought it would be. And so you really have to do that process of deliberately designing your business and then checking to make sure that what you're building matches the blueprint. And so what advice would you give someone who's listening to this, who wants to do what you did and design her week to have that quality of life be at the forefront, as opposed to the rise and grind being at the forefront?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the big piece was where do you want to be in 10 years? Like, if this is this chapter of my life, and if I think about my life in kind of 10-year chapters, and it's kind of how it's played out for us, where do I want to be? So when Sarah was 30, where did she want to be when she was 40? Now I'm 40. Where do I want to be when I'm 50? Right. So if I'm really clear on what 50 looks like, and I must admit, I found this much easier once we had a child, because I'm like, right, so Scarlett will be 10, and then Scarlett will be like not at home anymore. And, so it got easier because there's something to measure off. So where do I want to be in 10 years? And my top tip for this is, if you go, oh my God, Sarah, I've got no idea where I'm going to be next week, is to write down everything you've done in the last 10 years of your life. Like everything you've achieved in 10 years, and then go, well, I'm older and wiser and smarter now, so I can at least do what I did in those last 10 years, and I can do it quicker and easier and with less effort for the next 10 years. So what do I want that to be? And so I figure out where I want to be in 10 years. And then if I come back to today, what are the things I need to be doing now to make that happen? And in 10 years, I kind of designed this ideal life, like in a week. So I was like, what time do I want to wake up, and what time do I want to have to myself, and what do I need from my relationships, and how much time does that require, and what are the things that need to fill up my week? And so I put all of that stuff in, and then I was like, okay, and then what's left for running a business, and what sort of business does it need to be to serve me? Because I talked about having 90 employees. That's not me. Like, some people want to build a big business with their name on the side of the building and lots of employees. I recognized very quickly that that's not where I want to be. I like having a team, but I like having a team that's close enough that I can engage with them all regularly. With a team of 90, you start to get layers of people, and it didn't fill me up.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for you? What does it serve for you? How does it look and feel like in that business? I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be about growth. I wanted it to add value. And then I went out and designed that business. And of course, we wanted it to be location flexible. So it needed to be something online, right? And then we just slowly started making steps towards it. So it was like, what is in my life right now that needs to be deleted from my life if I want to go there? And there was a lot. For me, there was a lot. And then what do I need to delegate and outsource? Like, if I never have to clean another house or wash another dish or prepare another dinner, like, that's my ideal life. So, when we started, we could afford a cleaner for 2 hours every fortnight on a Friday. That's all we could have. We probably couldn't even afford that, but we did it anyway. And so we started with slowly getting rid of things. Now I have a cleaner comes 3 mornings a week. Eventually they'll come every day, which means I don't hang the washing out and I don't do the dishes from dinner last night because someone else is going to come in and fix it for me in the morning.
Yep.
So I wanted to build a life that had more time with the people that mattered and that lit me up. And now I do. Like I said, I kind of still pinch myself. I'm like, I come in, I do my work for 30 hours. I'm really excited about the future for it. I've looked after my body already this morning. I've had some time with my daughter. Like, I've just ticked all the boxes. I haven't had any time with my husband because he's away. But when he's back, I would have had some time with him. And so all of a sudden, the things that actually matter to me are done. And so everything else is kind of, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, well, my life's great as it is.
Yeah. I love so we're recording this in December of 2021, and I love how many parallels there are between your design process and the business building week that we just finished last week, where on day one, we go, okay, over the past year, you said, look at the past 10 years, but we said, okay, look at the past year, what worked and what didn't? What did you accomplish? What do you want to take with you into the next year? And what do you want to leave behind? And then you go through this process of, okay, so what's your big picture vision? We looked back. Now let's look to the future. What does that look like? All right, now how do we take everything that you've learned and you've developed? You're older, you're wiser, you're smarter, you're more efficient now. And how do we turn those into stepping stones to get you to that big picture vision? And it sounds like that. I just love this because you and I have never talked about this before, and yet there's so many parallels, and that's really what it takes to get to that point. And one of the other things that you've mentioned a few times that I want to get your take on is this idea of time. So we measure everything by time. But one of the things that often happens to those of us who run our own businesses, and we're doing so many things, and we're working with people, and we're working with digital everything that doesn't really have like a physical, tangible presence. Everything is over Zoom nowadays, or it's in Slack or Asana or Facebook or wherever. What happens, and how do you advise your clients when they say something like, I want my days to look like this, and they lay out their design, but I'll start on something and then it's like the whole day has just gotten away from me. And so it's like this mastery of time. It feels like something that's so elusive, but it seems like you have such amazing command over your time. Tell me about that.
So I think there's a couple of things. I think you need to know your vision and your why, really important. Like that one's really important. There's so many black holes of, places you can spiral down in a business day now, where you can get distracted, whether it be, researching and reading more books, or watching stuff online, or talking with, there's so many amazing people out there now that you can connect with all over the world. You could spend your whole day doing that. When I'm 50, that is totally where I want to be. Just like exploring all these amazing brains that are out there in the world, whether it be reading or watching or engaging in conversation. So you can get dragged down those black holes. So for me, it's really important that I plan my week in advance. So I don't start my week without a plan. So all of my time is accounted for. And people go, oh, but isn't that stressful? Isn't it so busy? And I go, no, because I know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. There's time in there for rest. There's time in there for play. There's time in there for everything I need. And it means that nothing gets in my calendar this week. So if you wanted to engage or have a conversation with me, you would have to book in next week or the week after, or given at this time of the year, it's even further. It's probably out in January now for most people. And that has allowed me to go, hey, look, I'd love to do that. I don't have capacity for it right now or this week, but I have got some space next week. Let's have a conversation about it then. And so getting deliberate about my time. So I plan my week every week on a Thursday for next week, in alignment with what matters most to me, which is in alignment with my vision that I want for my life. And so I'm constantly reviewing it by that and going, is this getting me closer to where I want to be? Would future Sarah be happy about this decision? So I heard someone say the other day, you're playing a game where someone else gets all the rewards. Your future self gets all the rewards for the actions I'm taking today. And are you doing things that they will thank you for? And the answer I want to be is resoundingly yes. I'm certainly not perfect. There are certain times when I'm like, I'm going to eat the chocolate and drink the wine, going for the walk and drinking too much, enough water. But I want it to be more often than not. I want to be at that tipping point where future Sarah's going to look back and go, man, 40-year-old Sarah, she made some good decisions, and she, set me up with a good foundation for the future. So that's what I do. And sometimes things happen and people cancel stuff out. Like I'm always excited when someone can, like I ask people not to. So I say, give me lots of money if you need to cancel. However, when someone does cancel, I'm like, oh, a whole hour. What can I do with it? It's like the biggest gift. And I really value my time. So my time's worth $1,000 an hour now to me. I don't do things that cost $10 to $20 an hour to do. If I can pay someone to do that, in New Zealand, it's a bit more than that, 20 to 30 New Zealand dollars an hour, then that's what I'm going to do. And that piece there, getting past all those underlying stories around, only rich people do this, or, you're lazy if you don't clean your own house and all that sort of stuff. Once I got past all of that, like life just got really good. So do that stuff.
I love it because I do the same thing. I do my weekly planning on Sunday nights, and that's like I'm a writer just by nature. And so it's my pen and paper way to kind of switch my brain from weekend mode into work mode and know that I'm not going to have an overwhelming Monday. I know where everything is. I know all the priorities, all of those things, but I do that every Sunday. I plan my week, and it sounds like there's this beautiful structure. A lot of people think that, the freedom lifestyle, the work from anywhere, the laptop lifestyle, it just means that you're going with the flow and nothing is rigid, nothing is structured. But there's actually this beautiful freedom in the structure where if you have these habits and you have these plans, you can relax into them and nothing can surprise you. nothing can take you away from the things that really do matter to you and that you do want to be spending your time on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's been a big one, is that I don't want to be surprised by my life. I want to be delighted by it, but I don't want to be surprised by it. And I think that's really key, is that I've been deliberately saying, this is the life that I'm going to have. And I've obviously had some conversation with my husband and our daughter and gone, what sort of life do we want to have? Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And we've deliberately moved towards that. And I've had it recently, it's just started. I haven't seen it before, where people have gone, oh, well, you're lucky, you've got privilege because you're married to this person and you've done this. And I'm like, no, those are deliberate choices I've made and deliberate conversations I've had, and the work that we've done to have that conversation. Do I think that everyone should stay married? And no, absolutely not. But if you are married, be clear about where you're going together, because if one of you is growing and one of you is not, it won't last. You've got to grow together. It's really important. And having those conversations about what does life look like together, especially like for us, we're in business together as well. Yeah. So, it can be really easy for it to become all consuming, that your only conversation is, what's going on at work, what's going on with this team member, what's going on with the strategy, what's going on with the government, and what are they doing with the tourism industry at the moment. Like, we could just talk about that all the time. And so boundaries have been really important for us. But our life's not surprising to us anymore. It was 5 to 10 years ago. It was a total, I didn't know how the year was going to play out. I was constantly, like you talked about, overwhelmed and stressed. And I was surprised when good stuff happened. Now I expect it's the wrong word, but I'm definitely constantly delighted by what shows up with consistent small changes that I've made in my life.
You said that was about 5 to 10 years ago, that you guys were still surprised by life and, you had that sense of overwhelm. What do you feel like was the tipping point for you?
Would you believe working on Christmas Day? So I mentioned we're still in tourism, but we also had a family business that we were involved in hospitality. And we had a really great year. We had a great team, everything set up, everything was ready to go for Christmas Day. But I used to have a rule that says I won't ask my team to do anything that I won't do. So if I ask my team to show up for work on Christmas Day, that means I have to show up for work on Christmas Day. And if you're a business owner, you know that that's crazy, because if I show up on Christmas Day, I'm also showing up on the 5 or 6 or 7 days beforehand to do all your normal business owner work. And now I'm taking the days where I should be resting and recovering and spending with your family to work as well, doing someone else's job. Yeah. So I was going in anyway. But what happened was we had a team of 25 rostered for the front of house and 5 didn't show up. And so I ended up showing up to work and then calling my husband to ask him to work. And our daughter ended up with a babysitter on Christmas Day, basically. And she's 5. She's 9. So this is only 4 years ago. And so we'd already started making changes, but this was the big change, was when she called about 7:30 that night, or the babysitter called, and she's always been this rock star kid that went to bed, read her a story, goes to bed, out, done. And at 7:30 at night, and the babysitter was like, she's not going to go to bed. She says she won't go to bed. She wants to talk to one of you. And she talked to my husband, not to me. And she said to Johnny, next time at Christmas, if you and Mum need to go to work, you need to tell me so that I'm prepared. She said, because Christmas is supposed to be for family, not for working. And it was
what a wise little 5-year-old.
I know, wise little thing. I was like, God, she's wise, and your mother hasn't figured it out yet. And so when Johnny heard this, he went home straight away. I worked until 1 o'clock in the morning, and I came home and I gave her a hug and a kiss while she was sound asleep. She won't remember any of it. And I promised her never again. And we unraveled it from there. We sold 2 businesses that year. The next year we sold out of another one, and had planned to sell the tourism business. And so we had a signed sale and purchase agreement in February. So that was kind of the tipping point. I was just like, this is it. Someone once said to me, get 18 summers with your children, and I'd wasted the first 5. I hadn't had a summer with Scarlett. And so now it's like I'm having a summer with Scarlett. And so we have that time together. We go and do things together, school holidays. I aim to work.
We lost your audio there for a second.
Did you? Oh.
Okay, you're back. Yep. I think it's just a little blip in the internet connectivity world. So it's amazing that you guys actually listened. You listened to your little 5-year-old girl and you said, she's saying something that's really important. And I've heard similar stories from other entrepreneurs who now have these seemingly impossible lives that it's just beautiful and perfect and they're so happy. And it's literally everything that we all get into entrepreneurship to have. And yet it took them until some sort of tipping point, some sort of crisis. And for many of the, especially women that I know, they ended up in the hospital. One I know had ulcers, one I know she had aggressive diabetes that was just progressing so much more quickly than doctors expected. And it took being in the hospital and realizing that they were neglecting their bodies and their physical health for the sake of a digital business for them to really wake up and go, okay, something's got to change. So before anyone else has to go through that sort of crisis tipping point or that heartbreaking hearing your daughter on the phone saying, I don't want you to work on Christmas anymore. Next time this is going to happen, I need to be prepared. This poor little 5-year-old girl who just wants to spend Christmas with her mom and dad. What advice would you give someone to prevent them from going through that sort of severe tipping point, but still having that kind of awakening?
Yeah, I think the thing for me is, don't wait for it. Like, you don't want to, for me in my world, and I'm sure for you in your world, you do not want to be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff.
We lost your audio again.
It's flicking, isn't it?
There we go. We're back.
Yeah, I think it's flicking between two. Sorry, hon. All right, let's see if it stops it flicking now.
Okay. So the last you said was you don't want to be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah, I don't want to be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff anymore because, picking people up from rock bottom, yes, you get these miraculous changes. We shouldn't have to get there, though. We shouldn't have to get to that place. For me, it's about that deliberate thought. So if you're just starting out, if you're just thinking about going out into business, going, why am I going out into business and what do I want this to look like? And I don't mean how do I want to look like financially, right? Great, have some financial goals. We're all really good at that. Everybody tells us to have financial goals, and so that's what we do. But I think you have to think about money's really abundant. When we run out of it, there's always a way to make more. I don't, the people that I work with, I call them my beautiful overachievers. I'm like, when things get really hard, even when you think there's just no way out, you'll always find a way to make money. Yeah. But there is not a will in the world that I can give you back the time you spent. Like the 168 hours you give every week, you use them up, you spend them, you invest them, you give them away to other people. There is no magic machine in the world that will get you those back. Yeah. So use that more wisely. So think very carefully about how your time needs to look each and every day, each and every week, each and every month for you to be the version of yourself that you want to be, because this business journey is so much more about who we are and how we show up and who we're becoming and how we are spending our time than the dollar figures or the that stuff will come naturally as a result of you doing the work on yourself. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And so therefore, what actions do I need to do with my time to make that happen? And that's the key part there.
Beautifully said. And on that note, Sarah, where can people check you out if they want to hear more, learn more, and work with you?
Yeah, awesome. So I'm at sarahgreener.com, which makes it really simple to find me. And online, we have a really awesome community of women who are doing this. They're getting back a day a week in 40 days. So we have a free community where I share a whole lot of free guides and support. And obviously you get that chance to hang out with like-minded people that are on the same journey as you over at the Human-Centered Business, and that's on Facebook.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. This was incredibly valuable. I want everybody to listen to this episode and take in this message because we only have one life to live. And It needs to be one that you can look back on and smile, not look back on and regret. So you're doing amazing work. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's Ray again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and more. And want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at www.chironconsulting.us/podcast.